Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. Shri Sadguru Paramatmane Namaha. Sarva Maharshibhyo Namaha. Sixth Sloka. Bandhuratmatmanastasya Enatmaivatmanajitaha Anatmanastu Shatrutve Vartetatmaiva Shatruvat. Substance. His mind is a friend whose mind is conquered by the self. But to him who has not conquered the mind itself acts like an enemy in harmful ways. Commentary. The same idea has in the previous verse is elaborated here. Friend and foe are both inside man. The subdued mind is a friend and the turbulent mind is the enemy. External friend or enemies are not so loyal or persistent as conquered mind. The mind subdued and kept under control is the greatest friend to lead one to external peace. Even so, the turbulent mind poisoned with lust and greed leads to destruction. So, control of mind is essential for spiritual progress. The word Atma in this context refers to the mind, including the senses and the bodily organs. Mind conquered by the self. Man has to conquer the lower self by the higher self. Question. Who is the friend? Answer. The subdued mind is a friend unto oneself. Question. Who is a foe? Answer. The turbulent mind is a foe unto himself. The reward of self-subdual is declared. Seventh sloka. Jitatmanaha prashantasya paramatma samahitaha sitoshna sukha dukkeshu tata manavamanayoh. Substance. The man who has subdued the mind and is full of peace experiences the Supreme Self under all conditions in heat and cold, pleasure and pain, honor and dishonor. The mind of such a man experiences the Self under all conditions. Commentary. The ill-regulated mind of the common man is upset by the pains of opposites, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, honor and disgrace, proud in the hour of praise, sullen in the hour of shame, elated in the hour of pleasure, depressed in the hour of pain. The mind goes through a constant wheel of different moods and passions. Every moment of life causes a peculiar change in mind. The ignorant man lives and dies under the sway of the turbulent and disturbed mind. He is never peaceful. Peace is the result of the restful state of mind. When the mind is in a state of restless ecstasy, there can be no taste of peace at all. But the mind of the sage is different. It is always in a state of balance. Whatever changes may be happening outside and rests in the infinite peace of Atma. As little waves and ripples of wind cannot shake a huge mountain, the pairs of opposites cannot move the man who has subdued the mind. He is always established in the self and enjoys the bliss of self. So, by constant practice, the seeker has to keep the mind in the condition of immovable stability. Question. Who is it that remains unmoved by the pairs of opposites? Answer. The sage who has conquered the mind is not affected by the pairs of opposites. His mind rests peacefully in the self. The attributes of the sage who rests in the self are mentioned. 8th sloka. Gnana Vignana Truptatma Kutastho Vijitayendriyaha Yuktaha Ityuchyate Yogi Samaloštashmakanchanaha. Substance. The yogi who is satisfied with the knowledge of the Shastras and experience of the self, who is immovable, who has conquered the senses, who look with an equal eye on mud, stone and gold, is said to be united and harmonized in yoga. Commentary. Yoga means union of the self with Paramatma. The path leading to this union is also yoga. The man who strives for yoga is a yogi. Though there are several yogis, yet very rarely we come across a yogi of the highest realization. The attributes of the perfected yogi are mentioned here. One who is satisfied with Gnana and Vijnana means Gnana and Vijnana are mentioned separately in the Gita. Gnana is understanding of the self by the study of the Shastras, the teaching of the Guru and the elders. Vijnana means direct self realization. It is just the difference between the theory and practice. One may study the art of cooking from books, but this knowledge is not complete without practical experience. One should clearly understand the difference between the two. The scholar may imagine that he has attained self realization by his knowledge of the Shastras. No doubt, the value of the intellectual knowledge of truth should not be underestimated, but this should never be mistaken for realization. Realization requires an absolute subdual of the senses, the mind, and the intellect, the elimination of all desires, and the perfect peace in the self. The words truptaha, tushtaha are used to show that the realized yogi is perfectly contented in the self. Wealth and enjoyments, fame and name, power and position do not lead to this undisturbed contentment in the self. Everybody knows it. There is still a feeling of incompleteness. Having attained the self, man knows that he has nothing else to seek for. He is contented forever and ever. Unshaken means the yogi remains unshaken and immovable when he rests in the self. Kuta means the iron block used by the jeweler to shape the ornaments. Just as the iron block remains unshaken when the jeweler uses the chisel to shape the jewels, so also the yogi remains unshaken and unaffected by the challenges that takes place in the external life. There is no change in him because he is resting in the self and the self is immovable and eternal. The word kutastaha may also be taken to refer to the self. Kutastokshara uchyate. So the yoga ruda is one who has attained unity with the self, one who has conquered the senses. Means self-control is mentioned many times as the most important discipline in spiritual life. The yoga rudha is one who has thoroughly conquered the senses. Who looks equally on mud, stone and gold means the yoga rudha looks with an equal eye on mud, stone and gold. He sees no difference between them. How? He knows that all natural objects, trees, rocks, sun, and the stars, the clouds, rain, the body, etc., are only a combination of the five elements in varying proportions. So these objects do not appear to be different for him. In the same way as different jewels do not appear different for the gold merchant who weighs and values the gold only, minus the name and form. So, these objects do not make any difference for the man of self realization. They are the same to him because he sees only the spiritual substratum in all of them. So, his vision is equal and balanced. It is the mind that gives value to things. Gold is symbolic of all precious things in the world. That which is rare acquires greater value. That which is common pays less value. All this difference is caused by the mind which attributes relative value to things. The yoga rudha, who has seen the one substance out of which all these are made, finds no distinction between them. It is all infinite ocean of Satchidananda. What is great and what is small? There is no special value to anything because the background for all is only the self. If in a dream one is a king and another is a beggar, what difference does it make to the awakened man? For the man of self-realization, clay and gold are equal. One who has such experience of the self cannot see any distinction between the two. Question. What are the attributes of a yoga rudha? Answer. Knowledge of the Shastras, experiences of the self, perfect contentment, immovable firmness in yoga, conquest of the senses, equal vision. These are the attributes of the Yoga Rudha.